Earlier today, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak announced that he is serious about tackling the illegal migration crisis. But there's a problem with his announcement. We've heard it all before. Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first video of the day, the channel that truly keeps you up to date with all the political and social news in the country. We're going to come to you guys every half an hour with news updates. First things first, today in the House of Commons, we've had Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer standing up saying that they really care about tackling the illegal migration crisis. Now both of them said the same, but they have different plans and both not going to work. Well, Starmer's plan, we're going to talk about Starmer in a second, but first let's talk about Rishi Sunak, because he's Prime Minister. Now, as Prime Minister, the narrative, the rhetoric, whoever wrote that speech, they thought they did such an amazing job, because the first part of the speech, the first minute, was essentially talking about how passionate he is about protecting the British borders, and how passionate he is about the burden it has, the migration crisis, on the public services and local communities. So they thought they were very, very good. But in reality, we've heard it all before. You know from where? Oh, the list of these guys in this photo. From Liz Truss and Boris Johnson to Theresa May and David Cameron, at least over the last few years. Forget about the ones on the right, they don't even count anymore. The dinosaurs of British politics. Every single Prime Minister and Home Secretary as well have said the same thing. And every time, every couple of years, they come out with a new plan. And the new plan is always either the same plan or a plan that's not workable. People care about this issue, and politicians tend to trick us by just pretending that they care, so they get the vote. And they are confused. They're like, well, what do we do? We have the Home Office bureaucrats to deal with. We got this to deal with. We've got the left-wing lawyers to deal with. They have everybody to blame but themselves. Now, there were key points in this speech I'm going to show you, and they even tweeted this proudly, Rishi Sunak's team and Downing Street. There are a few points that I want to talk about in this video. First things first, Rishi Sunak talked about, in order to announce these new measures to deliver on his promise to tackle illegal migration, he's announcing a new deal with Albania and the Albanian government to speed up the return of, as he calls them, Albanian asylum seekers, or as we call them, Albanian illegal migrants, economic migrants who come here on small boats. New deal with the Albanian government that is a NATO ally. Fun fact, everybody, we already have a deal with the Albanian government because they're a NATO ally. They're literally an ally. You don't need to make a new deal to pick up the phone and say, we found 5 of your people who came here on a small boat, and they claim that they were trafficked. They went asleep in Albania one night and woke up on a small boat in Dover and said, oh, I don't know how I ended up here. Someone kidnapped me and brought me here. So surely that person wants to go home, right? Pick up the phone, call up the Albania and say, come and pick up your citizen. It's not really rocket science. I mean, obviously, I'm making it more simple, but in reality, in terms of the diplomatic relations, we already have these agreements. Now, I don't understand what this new deal is going to be about, but let's hope that it's going to work. But he focused way too much on the Albanian migration because, well, that is a big problem. What about everybody else? What about all the other areas and issues that we're dealing with? There are still people from North Africa and the Middle East are coming here, and he made it sound like just because it was in the news headlines, the Albanian economic illegal migrants, he thought, if I focus on this for the first 5-10 minutes, then people think I've done something about it. No, you haven't. There's still people coming in from everywhere else. Now, second point of what he said, he also said, I'm introducing, so let's just say, we already have a command center when it comes to the border. But he's introducing, this is not just a command center, it's a dedicated and unified command center. It's not just a normal command center, it's an M&S command center. So he's announcing something we already have just to do the PR exercise, saying, well, let's just come up with a new name. So, dedicated and unified small boats command center to set up how we police the channel. I'm pretty sure as a normal country, not just a normal country, a developed country that has a rich history, especially maritime history, you just came up with the idea that we need to police the channel. I'm pretty sure this island, since the days of the Anglo-Saxons, had to find a way to police the channel. We had the French keep coming in here. So it's not really a new problem. Oh, we've just discovered there's some water around the island. We need to create a command center to do something about this. We already had a command center. We already had the border force. We already had the navy. But you didn't do anything about it. Next interesting point of the speech. We are moving up to 10,000 people out of the expensive hotels. So he said, I don't want people to stay in hotels. Do you know what he said? Instead of keeping them in hotels, we're going to send them to holiday parks and student accommodations. And in this tweet, he admitted, he didn't actually say it in the tweet, but in the speech, he also mentioned military bases. So people are complaining about the hotels, not necessarily just because they are hotels. It's because they are our space that's been taken by illegal migrants in big numbers. So he said, oh, I think people have a problem with the hotels. So let's just move them from the hotels to holiday parks, camping sites, student accommodations, and military bases. And everyone's going to be happy about this. No, Mr. Sunak, the problem was not necessarily the actual hotels. The problem was the fact that you're using the hotels, and now you're going to, on top of that, you're going to be using holiday camps and all these other areas. It's not really the solution, is it? Now, he also did talk about the fact that he's pledging, is a big promise, to abolish the case backlog of in terms of the initial asylum decisions by the end of 2023. This is a bold promise. I'm not really a gambler in that sense, apart from the World Cup. Put a couple of bets. I am going to say they're not going to sort out the backlog by next year. I mean, the government sucks at everything in general anyway. Look at the NHS backlog. So I'm pretty sure this is going to backfire massively, this bold promise. If somehow it works, then fine. Well done. You've done it. I just don't believe it. It's just going to happen. By the way, I made fun of all these tiny issues. They're not tiny issues, by the way. They're at certain points. But it's part of the whole package, and they want to create new deals and all this. It's not really going to change anything anyway. But this guy is even worse, because I'm translating what he basically said in one sentence. Keir Starmer, the leader of the Labour Party, stood up and basically said, in order to tackle illegal migration, we must bring the same people, the same number of people, through legal routes. He's obsessed with legal routes. British people don't want big numbers to come here, legally or illegally. And the problem is not necessarily the boats. The problem is the fact that they're coming here. Not everything that happens around the world is no longer our fault or our responsibility. We're all the way to the west of Europe, and you expect us to take everybody, not only from Hong Kong and Ukraine, but now from and Afghanistan. Now you want it from Iraq, Syria, Iran, and even probably Morocco these days. I mean, Morocco's still stable, but you never know what's going to happen. Tunisia. I don't understand why everything's now our responsibility. Whether there are neighboring countries, the rich Persian Gulf Arab countries are still refusing to take in any of the illegal or actual asylum seekers or refugees. They're still refusing. So why is it our job to take on the burden? That's one issue. Secondly, the SNP, they have a new leader in Westminster. Ian Blackford's gone. Now you have Stephen Flynn. Stephen Flynn stood up and basically said, there is no such thing as illegal. There is no such thing as illegal. Yeah, unless you're talking about the financial activities of the SNP government, then yes, that is very, very illegal, Mr. Flynn. So we are in trouble, ladies and gentlemen, when these are the grown-up adults in the room in Westminster politics. But we are not going to give up. We are going to be exposing them on a regular basis. We will keep them to account, and eventually the next election will come, and eventually the British people will have their say. And again, everything is down to us. If we, as a collective, as a country, still somehow voting the current version of the Tories or the Labour Party or something worse, then it's our fault. So it's our job to start fighting now for a proper, common sense approach towards politics and governance in this country. Now, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back every half an hour for the rest of the day. The next video that we're going to have for you guys is Kwasi Kwarteng's confession about his time under Liz Truss. Subscribe to the channel on my Tousi, and we are the media.